the personal statement, and this is a very crucial one. If you always ask me, it's a very crucial one because the personal statement kind of at the end summarizes everything that you've been saying before. So the prompt says the CSC encourages applications from candidates who have faced significant disadvantage or personal barriers to higher education or are underrepresented in their field of study or workplace. Please summarize the ways in which your personal background has encouraged you to want to make an impact in your home country. You may wish to highlight any areas where you have already made significant contributions, including overcoming personal or community barriers in accessing higher education or within your field. And you have 500 words for
Yeah,
this, so you have a lot of space to play. And
exactly.
I'll just briefly say the name of this essay usually is very spot on. It's a personal statement. It's about you. If you've followed what we've been saying, all the essays we've been writing before have always been about your problem, your solution, your problem. Career plan was a little bit about you, but that's about your future, what you're projecting to do in the future, what you're projecting to achieve. This is where you talk about where you're coming from. This is where you talk about why this problem is important to you. A problem can be important, but it may not be important to you. But if you are saying that you're the best person to be given the tools to solve this problem, you have to tell us why this problem is important to you. How did you even come across the
Mm.
problem? How do you relate to the problem? What have you been doing about the problem in your own way that you've now discovered that you need higher education to do more? Because you're not going to instantly become passionate about a problem if you've not done anything about the problem before, if you've not thought about the problem before. It's not because you want to do a master's or a PhD that you become automatically passionate about a problem. There has to be something that drove you to choose this problem as something you want to go into as part of your study. So this is where you talk about those things. If you've had any challenge in the past, if it's because you're underrepresented, if it's because there's no black people, like Sidi, I will steal your example. You talked about
Yeah,
there's not much about Islamic finance in the Gambia, so that's an
yeah, yeah,
underrepresentation. So that's the reason why
yeah,
you're passionate about this, because you found out that it does not exist in your area. It's something that you may want to have access to, or it's something that maybe you have a cousin, you have an uncle, you have a friend that encountered a challenge that needed this thing to be on ground to solve that problem, and it was not there. And then that's why you've decided
exactly.
this shouldn't happen again. This shouldn't be the situation of things in my country. I want to solve this
Mm.
problem. So that's where you talk about those kind of things. If you've done any kind of past work experience within that field, maybe you're working in a particular field and you've noticed that in this field, this type of professionalism does not exist in my country. Every time we want to undertake this type of projects, we have to look for expatriates, which is high cost. So sometimes we don't do those things because we cannot afford to get expatriate help. So you want to learn this thing so that you can come and be an in-house asset to your country. This is where you talk about all those other things. So it's a personal statement. I always tell people, always write about where you're coming from. Don't try to be too
Exactly,
professional. Personalize the story. This is why I'm passionate about it.
exactly.
Maybe when I was a child, this happened, or when I got into university, something like this happened, or when I got into the workplace, something like this happened, or it could even be, it must be far back in the past. Maybe last year, you encountered a crisis, you encountered a problem, you encountered a situation. It might not be a personal crisis. Maybe someone had a problem, and you learnt about it, and you thought about it, and you found out, oh, this shouldn't be happening. I want to be part of that solution. So this is where you write about all those things. Write about it logically. So don't scatter the parts of your personal statement around. I always tell people this is where you talk about even your background study. This is where you talk about it. So usually I say if you start off with an introduction, how did you get related into this problem? How did this problem become a passion of yours? Then you drill down to, okay, this is what I studied in my background. This is some of the work experience I had. Don't be too detailed, but these are the skills I have. This is some of the work I've been doing in the background related to this issue. This is why I think that a master's or a PhD is the next step, because I've encountered this barrier and I need more knowledge to cross this hurdle. And this is what I'm aiming to achieve after getting through with my studies. Briefly, 500 words.
Okay.
Is Yeah. So CD or Ejiro,
Yeah,
do you guys want to?
yeah. Yes, I would just want to say that. I think the personal statement is one opportunity that you have as a prospective applicant to sell your story. Aside from the academic merits, this is one of the options that you have to tell CSC that out of the thousands of applicants that apply for the opportunity, Buchi or CD, my unique experience actually merits for me to be given this opportunity. And then one common theme that seems to be the case with almost all the applicants for this kind of scholarship is the fact that we all come from a financially challenged background. I want to say maybe if we are children of Ali Dangote or so, we might not be applying for this. So that usually is a common thing that, okay, we come from a financially challenged family background, but it's not enough to say, okay, I come from a financially challenged background. That is not a winning story. So what will contribute in making your story winnable is the fact that what have you been able to do with that situation? How have you been resilient? How have you been proactive to transform that challenge to get you to the level that you are, to the level that you are seeking for an MSc scholarship or a PhD scholarship? So the key emphasis here is it's not only enough for you to indicate the problem, but how have you used that problem to transform yourself into the level that you are, and what you believe having the scholarship will help in terms of continuing that journey. I think if you try to have these as pointers in writing your personal statement, you will be able to come up with a convincing and a winnable personal statement. Like I said, it's not enough to indicate your problem because all of us might have that problem. But Buchi and Ejiro and CD all identifying that they come from a financially challenged, family background. Without scholarship, they cannot proceed with studies. It's not enough to put it like that. But how have you been able to utilize that situation to navigate, to have impact, to sail yourself through to the level that you acquire a BSc and now you are looking for an MSc scholarship from CSC, or you've gone through to master's and you're looking for PhD. I think this is usually a good pointer to make sure that your application or your essay is a winnable one. Try to personalize it. We all would have our different experiences, but try to bring in your different experience into your study to try and sell as a winnable story that you actually merit to be given this. And this will be different from all of us. We all have our different story. But then the key thing that is important is how has those experiences, somehow help you to get to where you are to the extent that you're looking for this story, this opportunity to study in the UK. I think if you somehow try to infuse that in your personal story, it will contribute in making your personal story one of those that will stand out in your application.
Okay, I think a lot have been said, so I'll keep mine so brief. So let me put spice to the whole amazing dish that have been cooked. Your personal statement is time to shine your shine. It is personal. It is your story. So that thing that that nobody has asked you, they want to say, shine it there. Let us hear it. So in other words, things that I've not been asked. So what I just actually did was that I studied transportation. So I talked about my background, like you said. I said there's a lot of traffic congestion, etc. So that brought me into the atmosphere of what, or that inspired me to go into transportation. I did my BSc. I went for my 1 year mandatory youth service. That's after you graduate, you have to serve your country for 1 year. And during that process, I got to involved with the transport crisis in my place of service where they needed a transport expert. And I joined the project. However, I found out that my knowledge was limited, so I needed to further more. And then I have to apply for a scholarship to further more. So it's something like that. And then the whole story. So those things I think is your selling point. Because I just didn't want to further. I also want to make impacts because I knew that the more I know, the more I can make impacts.